The gleaming research vessel, Zikthar, hung in low Earth orbit like an iridescent soap bubble, its quantum-shifted hull reflecting the planet's blues and greens in psychedelic patterns. Inside, Chief Researcher NX gestured with three of their upper appendages at the holographic display, their scales shifting from deep purple to an excited orange. "Look at these readings, simply fascinating," they chittered to the assembled research team. "These humans, despite their primitive technology, show remarkable adaptability, but they're young." Nixovics manipulated the display to show footage of human children at play. "Their young are particularly vulnerable. No protective exoskeleton, no natural weapons, completely dependent on their progenitors." Science Officer Yik-Tal clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. "The perfect research specimens. Our previous adult captures have proven problematic." The assembled team shifted uncomfortably, remembering the incident that had cost them half a deck and 3 security officers. "Exactly," Nixovics' scales rippled with academic excitement. "We've been approaching this all wrong. Why struggle with fully developed specimens when we can simply acquire a juvenile? Their neural plasticity would make them ideal for studying human adaptability." Captain Ruzuk, who had been quietly observing from their command pod, finally spoke. Their voice carried the weight of authority, enhanced by the ship's harmonic resonators. "Your proposal has merit, Chief Researcher, but remember the Galactic Science Council's guidelines on specimen acquisition." "Of course, Captain," Nixovics practically purred, their scales now showing stripes of confident blue. "Our ship's quantum displacement field makes us completely undetectable to Earth's primitive scanning systems. The specimen containment units are equipped with the latest in psyche-dampening technology. The humans won't even know we were there." The display shifted to show their target acquisition zone, a wilderness training facility in what the humans called Montana. The advanced sensors of the Zikthar had detected a single juvenile human, seemingly isolated from the main group. "Our preliminary scans show the specimen is female, approximately 12 Earth rotations in age," Yik-Tal added, their appendages dancing across the control interface. "Minimal muscle development, no sign of the artificial weapons humans so rely upon. A perfect candidate." Captain Razuk's scales shifted to a decisive green. "Very well. Prepare the acquisition team. I want this done quickly and cleanly. We are, after all, the most advanced research vessel in the Galactic Science Fleet. This should be a simple operation." The research team dispersed to their stations, their movements efficient and purposeful. Multiple appendages flew across control surfaces as they prepared their equipment, each piece worth more than an entire human city. Their chittering conversations were filled with easy confidence and more than a little condescension toward their primitive research subjects. None of them noticed that the primitive scanning systems they detected around the wilderness facility bore the distinctive marks of human special forces equipment, and none of them thought to question why a single juvenile would be alone at such a facility. After all, humans were such simple creatures. The acquisition team's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere with all the subtlety of a cat burglar wearing quantum stealth technology. Chief Researcher NX watched through the ship's enhanced viewing screens as their target moved through the wilderness facility's grounds, their scales practically glowing with anticipation. "Look how it struggles with that primitive load-bearing device," NX commented, watching the human adjusting what appeared to be a heavy backpack. "Their young can barely support their own equipment. This will be easier than capturing a GX-Avorian sugar moth." Security Officer Macrell, a veteran of 17 specimen acquisitions, nodded their armored head. "Standard capture protocol, team. Tranquilizer field first, then gravity restraints. Remember, humans are fragile. We wouldn't want to damage our new research subject." The team's laughter sounded like marbles in a quantum blender. Through their advanced sensors, they watched the human moving through a training course. The subject occasionally stopped to make notes or adjust equipment, seemingly oblivious to their presence. "Scanning for other humans," Yik-Tal reported from their station. "Nearest life signs are 2 kilometers away. Perfect isolation." The capture team deployed with practiced precision, their quantum shift suits making them invisible to primitive human vision. They moved into position around their target, who was now sitting on a log, apparently reviewing something on a primitive data device. "Tranquilizer field on my mark," Macrell commanded. 3, 2, 1. The air shimmed as the invisible field activated. The human's head snapped up instantly, a reaction time that should have been impossible, but it was too late. The subject slumped forward, unconscious. "Target secured," McCrell announced triumphantly, initiating gravity lift. The unconscious human floated gently into their containment pod, which immediately activated its psyche-dampening field. The entire operation had taken less than 30 seconds. Back aboard the Zucathar, the celebration was already beginning. The research team gathered in the specimen observation chamber, their scales flickering with colors of success and scientific anticipation. "A flawless acquisition," Captain Rizek declared, their voice resonating with pride. "The Galactic Science Council will be most pleased. This specimen will advance our understanding of human development significantly." Nexavix was practically dancing around the containment pod, their appendages waving in excitement. "Look at the primitive clothing, the basic tools, and yet—" They paused, tilting their head. "The muscle tone is surprisingly well developed for a juvenile." "Probably from their primitive survival training," Yigtal dismissed, "already calibrating their testing equipment. Nothing compared to proper military conditioning. When shall we begin the first round of tests?" "Let the specimen acclimate for one standard rotation," Captain Rizek ordered. "We don't want to stress our new guest too quickly. After all, we have plenty of time for our research." The containment pod hummed softly in the background as the crew dispersed to prepare their various experiments. The human inside remained perfectly still, breathing deeply and regularly, perhaps a bit too regularly for someone under heavy sedation. But surely that was just another fascinating data point to study. What else could it possibly be? The first sign that something was wrong came during the night cycle. The Zerkathar's other research specimens, various Earth creatures collected for comparative studies, began exhibiting unusual behavior. The normally docile creatures pressed themselves against the far walls of their containment units, as far as possible from the central holding cell. "Most peculiar," Nexavix muttered, watching a wolf pack huddle together, their ears flat against their heads. "Perhaps they sense a hierarchical superior. Fascinating. We must document this for the council." The second sign came when junior researcher Bakatal failed to report for their shift. The young scientist had been assigned to monitor the specimen's vital signs during the night cycle. "Probably got caught up in their research again," Yigtal commented, their scales showing mild annoyance. These younger researchers always forgetting to log their hours properly. The third sign was harder to ignore. The ship's maintenance systems reported a series of inexplicable malfunctions across multiple decks. Door controls activated without command inputs. Environmental systems cycled randomly. Most oddly, the artificial gravity in several corridors fluctuated unpredictably. "Run a full diagnostic," Captain Rizek ordered, their scales showing the first hints of concern. "And where is Maintenance Officer Pikavor? They should have responded to these alerts by now." Security Officer McCrell accessed the ship's internal sensors. "Unable to locate Pikavor, Captain. Their biosignature is not registering." Their voice carried a note of confusion. "That's impossible with our technology." The fourth sign came when they tried to review the security footage. Entire sections were missing, replaced with perfect loops of empty corridors. The gaps moved through the ship like a ghost, never showing the same section twice. "The timestamps are intact," Yigtal reported, their appendages flying over the control surfaces. "But the footage, it's as if something is editing our security feeds in real time. That would require intimate knowledge of our systems." Captain Rizek's scales shifted to a troubled grey. "Where is Security Officer Jacomer? They were supposed to check on the specimen an hour ago." The bridge fell silent. 5 missing crew members now. "The containment cell readings are normal," Nexavix offered quickly, their voice slightly higher than usual. "The specimen remains in perfect hibernation. See?" They gestured to the monitoring station, showing steady vital signs and unbroken containment fields. The captain moved to inspect the readings personally. As they passed the main view screen, the ship's lights flickered briefly. When they stabilized, another crew member was missing. "This is ridiculous," McCrell declared, their professional composure cracking slightly. "We are the most advanced research vessel in the fleet. We have quantum-shifted hulls, psyche-dampening fields, and neural suppressors. Nothing could possibly—" The ship-wide communication system crackled to life, interrupting them. Instead of the usual clean signal, it played what seemed to be a human audio file, something their cultural database identified as classical music. The piece was apparently called Flight of the Bumblebee. "Shut it off," Captain Rizikth ordered, their scales now a distinct shade of worried purple. "I can't," Yuktal responded, their appendages trembling slightly. "The system isn't acknowledging any commands. It's as if someone else has control." "Impossible," Nexavix whispered, their scales nearly white with stress. "The specimen is contained. The readings show—" They all turned to look at the containment cell's monitor. The vital signs were still perfect. Too perfect. Almost as if— "Check the cell," Captain Rizikth ordered. "Physically check it, now." Mackerel approached the observation window, activated the internal lights, and froze. Their scales turned a color none of them had ever seen before. The containment cell was empty. On its floor lay a small device, obviously of human origin, blinking steadily. It was generating the perfect vital signs they'd been monitoring. From somewhere in the ship's depths came a sound that made their exoskeletons rattle. Human laughter, echoing through the ventilation system. Captain Rizikth's command center had transformed into a war room. Holographic displays showed the ship's layout from every angle. Security teams reported in with increasing panic, and the humans' music continued to play through the communication system, now mixing classical pieces with something their database identified as action movie soundtracks. "Security teams, converge on Section 7, Mackerel barked into the command channel. "We have the specimen cornered." A loud crash interrupted them, followed by sounds of struggle and several high-pitched screams. Then silence. "Team 6 report," Mackerel demanded. Static answered, "Team 6. The security feed from Section 7 flickered to life. The aliens watched in horror as their cornered specimen efficiently disabled a security team of 6 armed guards, using their own advanced weapons against them. The human moved with practiced precision, each strike calculated and devastating. That's not possible," Nexavix whispered, their scales practically transparent with shock. "Those are elite guards with enhanced combat conditioning." "Playing with us," Yuktal realized, their voice trembling. "It's been playing with us this whole time. Look at the movement patterns. Those aren't random strikes. That's advanced combat training." The human on screen turned to face the camera directly and smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. With deliberate slowness, they raised one of the stolen weapons and shot out the camera. "Full lockdown," Captain Rizikth ordered, their voice cracking with strain. "Seal all compartments, release the neural suppressant gas." "Already tried," a calm human voice responded through the ship's speakers. "Your neural suppressant gas system is now pumping filtered air, quite refreshing actually, though I did borrow some of the gas. Hope you don't mind." As if on cue, alarms blared from Deck 5. An entire security team had been found unconscious, apparently taken down with their own neural suppressants. "Fascinating adaptive capability," Nexavix muttered, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding their terror. "The specimen has not only learned our systems, but improved upon their tactical applications. Perhaps we should—" A nearby ventilation grate crashed to the floor. Before anyone could react, a small cylindrical object rolled into the room, releasing a familiar gas. The aliens scrambled for their breathing apparatus, but they'd grown complacent in their own ship. By the time they found them, spots were dancing before their eyes. The last thing they saw before losing consciousness was their helpless juvenile specimen, dropping from the ventilation shaft, now wearing pieces of modified alien armor over their tactical gear. "Thanks for the upgrade materials," the human said cheerfully, collecting weapons from the unconscious aliens. "The quantum shift technology is particularly interesting. We've been trying to crack that for years." Captain Rizikth fought against the encroaching darkness. What are you?" "Just a trainee," the human replied, examining one of their advanced rifles with professional interest. "You really should have done better research on that wilderness training facility you grabbed me from, though I suppose the classified files on Special Operations Command's youth development program wouldn't show up on your scans." The captain's scales turned a sickly shade of realization before they succumbed to the gas. They awoke an unknown time later to find themselves and their senior staff secured in their own containment cells. The humans sat cross-legged on a floating command pod, casually manipulating ship systems with stolen access codes. Don't worry, their captor said brightly, not looking up from their work. I've already called for a pickup. Your ship's quantum signature is being tracked by Earth's defense fleet as we speak. They're quite interested in studying your technology. A pause. Oh, and those missing crew members, they're fine. Taking a little nap in the cargo hold. Turns out your storage containers make excellent temporary cells. The specimen, no, the operative, finally looked up, and their smile carried all the predatory satisfaction of a wolf. Now, while we wait for my ride, why don't you tell me everything about this Galactic Science Council of yours? I'm sure Earth's intelligence services would love to know more about who's been authorizing these little research missions. The remaining crew of the Zukthar huddled in the auxiliary control room, watching security feeds with mounting horror. Their supposedly primitive specimen had turned their ship into a hunting ground, and they were most definitely not the hunters. Another team down, Yiktal reported, their voice hollow. The screen showed 3 security officers suspended in a makeshift net, crafted from computer cables and structural materials. That's the 4th failed capture attempt in 2 hours. Look at the trap construction, one of the junior researchers pointed out, their scales rippling with unwanted academic interest. The human used our artificial gravity generators to create a localized field distortion. They're learning our technology faster than we can counter them. The ship's environmental system suddenly shifted, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in an eerie red glow. The temperature dropped sharply. Accessing tactical database, the human's voice echoed through the speakers, accompanied by the sound of rapid data processing. Interesting. Your species becomes sluggish in temperatures below your standard operating range. Your security forces really should encrypt their biological data better. Enexivix, huddled in a corner, was frantically reviewing their initial scan data. This is impossible. The training facility, it was supposed to be a wilderness survival camp. But these abilities... Their scales paled as they accessed restricted Earth broadcasting channels. Oh no! The assembled crew turned to their chief researcher. What is it? The facility, Nexivix's voice trembled. It's not just any training ground, it's part of something called the Advanced Tactical Youth Integration Program. They take their most promising prospects and they struggle to continue. The human term is Black Ops training. A new security feed activated, showing their specimen methodically disassembling one of their quantum rifles. The human's movements were precise, expert. They removed components and reassembled them into something new, something weaponized. Your power distribution systems are fascinating, the human commented casually through the ship's comms. Did you know you can reverse the polarity on your containment fields, turn them from barriers into directed energy weapons? A pause. Want me to demonstrate? A distant explosion rocked the ship, followed by screams. That was just a low-power test, the human added cheerfully. Imagine what I could do with the main reactor. But you're just a juvenile, one of the junior officers protested. How can you understand our technology so quickly? Oh, that's the fun part, the human replied, their voice carrying an edge of predatory amusement. In my program, we specialize in adaptive warfare and rapid technology integration. Your ship is actually this month's practical exam. Thanks for the learning opportunity, by the way. My instructors will be thrilled. The crew watched in mute horror as their own defensive systems began activating one by one, turning corridors into death traps. Gravity fields reversed randomly, security barriers herded fleeing crew members into prepared ambush zones, and their own neural suppressants were pumped through carefully selected ventilation routes. Your species relies too heavily on automation, the human lectured as they worked. Once you understand the base coding language, everything else is just creative problem-solving. For instance, the room's gravity suddenly increased tenfold. The aliens collapsed, pinned to the floor by their own artificial gravity system. Did you know your gravity generators can be focused into concentrated fields? The human's voice was almost scholarly. The applications for non-lethal containment are remarkable. I've already written up 3 potential training scenarios based on this technology alone. Through the crushing gravity, Enexivix managed to activate their personal communicator. Why are you telling us all this? Professional courtesy, the human responded. Besides, my instructors always say that education should be a two-way street. You wanted to study humans? Well, now you're learning. Speaking of learning, The ship's main database began rapidly downloading into an external device. The aliens could only watch as generations of scientific knowledge were copied by their supposedly primitive captive. "Your encryption was good," the human commented, "but you should really consider not using predictable biological patterns as base codes. Monitoring your scientists' neural patterns while they worked made cracking it pretty straightforward." The gravity field suddenly released. As the crew struggled to their feet, the human's voice came through one final time, now carrying a tone of genuine excitement. "Oh, and you might want to brace yourselves. I think my extraction team just arrived. Fair warning, they're probably going to want to discuss your research methods in detail." The bridge of the Ziegthar had transformed from a symbol of advanced alien superiority into the last desperate holdout of a thoroughly humbled crew. Captain Rizikth had ordered every remaining security officer to fortify their position, creating what they believed to be an impenetrable defensive line. "The human can't possibly breach this position," Mackerel declared, their scales showing forced confidence. "We have 30 elite guards, automated defense turrets, and triple-layered containment fields. Even their primitive military training can't overcome—" The lights went out. "Really?" The human's voice echoed through the darkness. "Triple-layered containment fields. That's adorable. Quick question. Did you know your emergency power systems have a manual override in the maintenance tunnels? Because I did, after reading your technical manuals, which, by the way, you should really store more securely." The emergency light sparked to life, revealing empty guard positions where 4 security officers had been standing moments before. No one had heard a sound. Where are they?" one of the remaining guards whispered, their weapon trembling in their appendages. "Oh, don't worry, they're fine," the human responded cheerfully. "Just taking a little break. You guys really should have better hand-to-hand combat training. All that reliance on energy weapons makes you predictable." Captain Rizikth raised their command weapon, a supposedly unbeatable piece of advanced alien technology. "Show yourself! Face us directly!" "Funny you should mention facing things directly," the human's voice now came from directly behind them. "Like how you directly abducted what you thought was a helpless child." The captain spun around, firing their weapon at empty air. 3 more guards vanished in the confusion. "Your aim needs work," the human commented from somewhere else entirely. "But I guess that's what happens when you depend too much on auto-targeting systems. Speaking of which..." The bridge's defensive turrets suddenly swiveled and began firing stun pulses at their own crew. The aliens scattered in panic, their formation breaking completely. "Stop this," Nexavix pleaded, cowering behind a control panel. "We are scientists, we meant no harm." "No harm?" The human's voice turned cold. "You kidnap people for experiments and you claim no harm? Let's do a little experiment of our own. Test hypothesis. How long does it take to completely demoralize an overconfident alien research vessel?" The remaining guards found themselves being picked off one by one, each takedown more creative than the last. Some were snared by repurposed power cables, turned into electric nets. Others were trapped in suddenly depressurized sections, their own emergency protocols working against them. A few simply disappeared into suddenly dark corridors, their screams cut short by precise strikes. "Your species has so many pressure points," the human observed conversationally while systematically dismantling the bridge's defenses. "Fascinating biological weakness, really. I've been taking notes for my xenobiology class." Captain Rizikth, their scales now a sickly grey, made a final desperate attempt to regain control. "Initiate self-destruct sequence. Authorization." They never finished the command. A modified neural suppressor dart hit them squarely in the neck. Their own technology once again turned against them. "Yeah, about that self-destruct system," the human dropped from an overhead maintenance panel, landing gracefully in the center of the bridge. "I disabled it about an hour ago, right after I rerouted your communication systems to broadcast your location to Earth's defense fleet. They're very interested in studying your quantum technology." The remaining bridge crew stared in horror at their former specimen, now outfitted in a hybrid of their own advanced armor and tactical gear. The human casually spun one of their stolen weapons, looking almost disappointed. "You know what the really sad part is?" they said, systematically disarming the last few conscious aliens. "If you'd just done your research properly, you'd have known that human children are off-limits. Now you've not only failed your mission, but you've also given Earth military intelligence the greatest gift possible, access to your technology. The human smiled, and every alien on the bridge felt their exoskeletons grow cold with primal fear. Now then, who wants to help me document all your species' tactical weaknesses for my final exam? Captain Rizikth regained consciousness in their own containment cell, surrounded by their captured senior staff. Through the energy barrier, they watched their former specimen efficiently directing Earth military personnel who had boarded the vessel. "I must admit," the human said, turning to face the captured captain, "your ship's quantum technology is impressive. Shame about the security flaws, though. My instructors will have a field day, analyzing all the vulnerabilities I documented." The captain's scales flickered between rage and fear. You planned this. From the moment we took you." "Actually, you walked into an ongoing training exercise," the human replied, checking data on a stolen alien tablet. "We've been tracking your research vessels for months. You just happened to pick the perfect target at the perfect time. Lucky me, this counts as my final practical exam." An ex-civics pressed against the containment field. "But the readings, your combat capabilities exceed adult human parameters." "Top of my class," the human said with a shrug. "Been training since I could walk, family tradition, you know. Mum's special forces, Dad's military intelligence. They'll be so proud when they see the data I collected on your species' tactical weaknesses." The ship's emergency lights suddenly flashed red. A computerized voice announced, "Emergency protocols activated. Quantum core destabilization in progress." The assembled aliens gasped. Captain Rizikth allowed themselves a small smile. "You may have beaten us, but no one will study our technology. The quantum core's collapse will erase all evidence of—" "Override code accepted," the ship's computer interrupted. "Emergency protocols cancelled. Have a nice day." The human didn't even look up from their tablet. "Really, Captain? You thought I wouldn't find your hidden self-destruct codes? I cracked those hours ago, right after I downloaded your entire technical database and transmitted it to Earth's Quantum Research Division." Earth military personnel continued to sweep through the ship, systematically documenting and securing alien technology. The human turned to a newly arrived officer and snapped a crisp salute. "Agent Reynolds, mission accomplished. 1 alien research vessel captured, crew contained, and technology secured. Also, they held up a data crystal. I took detailed notes on their neural suppression technology. The applications for non-lethal peacekeeping operations are fascinating." The officer smiled. "Excellent work. Your parents will be pleased. Not many candidates pass their final exam by capturing an entire alien research vessel." The look on their faces when they realized who they'd actually captured. The human grinned. "Priceless, though I almost feel bad for them. Almost." Captain Rizikth slumped in their cell, scales faded to a pale grey of defeat. "We thought we were studying you." "Oh, but you were." The human's cheerful tone had an edge of steel. "You've learned a very important lesson about humanity. We're not the primitive species you thought we were. And our children?" They gestured at the captured ship around them. "They're definitely not defenseless." As Earth's military began preparations to tow the Zikthar to a secure facility, the human turned one last time to their former captors. "By the way, thanks for the practical education in alien technology. I was worried about my Xenotech certification exam next month, but after this," they patted the ship's wall affectionately, "I think I'll pass with flying colors. Oh, and Captain?" Rizikth looked up wearily. "Next time the Galactic Science Council wants to study humans?" The young operative's smile was pure predator. "Try asking permission first. We're actually quite friendly when people don't try to kidnap us."